Hello and welcome back to Nadya's Identity Files. I have with me the very talented, intelligent, and activist-driven Miriam Hanine here with me today. And thank you so much for being
Nadya.
here.
Thank you.
Really, really appreciate you coming on the show. We have a lot to talk about, probably a lot more that would go above and beyond an hour time slot, but we're going to do our very best. So you would do a lot of work. Obviously, you're a successful investigative journalist, an entrepreneur, and a producer. But, I've been throwing around the word activist and environmentalist a lot already on this show. Do you align your identity with either of those things?
I think that's a good question, because I have certainly come across a lot of activists where it's woe is me, and they take on the burden of the world, and I'm not. I mean, that's a generality. So I see myself as trying my best to walk my talk, and definitely acting, but also, thanks to the bees, learning how to be as well.
Right. So if somebody were to ask you, are you an activist, how would you respond?
I would say yes, I'm an activist, but I'm also a journalist, and I'm also an entrepreneur, and a producer, and a health consultant, and
that's wonderful.
And so a lot of things.
Right, and all of these wonderful things go into your identity. I mean, by no means do we have to align ourselves with only one faction of our identities, but it's interesting to think about, because I feel in a way, your activism is very much the umbrella for everything that you do, for your journalistic work, for your entrepreneurial vision, and so on, right?
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think we're being called, it's a time now where people are all being called to be activists.
Yeah, right.
That's the silver lining.
Absolutely. And you might recall when we first started talking, actually more in a marketing context, that I like to look at identity from a narrative perspective. I mean, obviously our professions and our genders and our sexualities and all those things go into making us up. They're part of who we are. But by and large, I feel that our personal journeys and our stories that, are very specific to just us define us. So, I mean, could you talk a little bit about how your journey has contributed to your identity?
Yeah, I think definitely the events that have occurred have contributed to my identity. And as a storyteller, you become comfortable with stories. I share stories to help bring a message across and communicate, but at the same time, I don't want to be pigeonholed by the stories, right? We become so hooked to these stories, and then you can become a victim to them. So it's a balance, if that makes sense. But the way I communicate is I say I'm a raconteur. I share stories. If I look at my life, there have been several incidences. One is my near-death experience, my accident, that very much was a milestone in my life.
Yeah, I would think so.
And but at the same time, not wanting to repeat the same story or be tied to I got hit by a car.
Right.
So I think it's a balance, but it's something I can't deny. So the accident very much was an initiation, I think, for me.
It was like a launch pad for you in some ways then, maybe, for some of your work?
Yeah, I think so. I remember after my accident at 29, which is a significant time in someone's life, where I went to an astrologer, and they told me that I would be dealing with health and helping others. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm a journalist.
You're like, excuse me? What?
And so now health is so much a part of my life, and everything I do, sharing, trying to empower others. And then, of course, the bees, I say flying into my life, and thinking initially that it was going to be like a project. Like, I've touched upon so many things, whether it's cults or plushies, people who have sex with stuffed animals. Just so many.
Oh my gosh, like furries?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god. Okay, y'all, this is a send out. If you know a furry, send them my way. I'll have them on my show. Sidebar.
So covering so many different things, and then having a moment. I remember being in the bathtub while making during making the film and thinking, oh my God, am I going to be a crazy bee lady? Because, pun intended, the bees have stuck.
Yeah.
And everything they symbolize is very much I'm aligned with.
Right. So in some ways, then you're aligned with the story of the bees, like where they originate from and their present plight to some degree.
I think everything they personify, they're ancient creatures, and we would say, the bees have a message. The question is, will we listen? Yeah. And they've been a part of our fabric, of our consciousness, and now more so than ever, I say that they're on, they're
right.
in the forefront of our consciousness. And they symbolize so many things, being the sacred feminine, cooperation, giving back, working for the greater good.
Right. Everything that we as humans should be doing, in short, right?
I think so. Let's say you talk about going back to the notion of activists.
Yeah.
There's a mission that is greater than you. And you're wanting to serve that. And yet I see people getting stumped by emotional, petty human drama.
Oh, yes.
Rather than putting that aside and thinking of the bigger goal that is,
right.
like I said, bigger than us. So even, let's say, with Honey Colony, it's a startup. My team works very hard for not a lot of, let's say, compensation right now as we grow.
Right.
But I feel like they're not only working for me, they're working for the mission.
Right.
To empower others and to educate others.
Right. You're working together to grow something bigger than yourselves.
Yeah, and I think the bees are very much can help. It's very apropos now to think of how can we work for the bigger picture together as a community.
Right. So let's talk some more about the bees and how they came into your life for the first time.
Yeah, I would love that. I think looking back, before the bees officially came into my life, I still had a metal rod, a 14-inch metal rod in my leg, because when I was hit by a car, I broke my femur and other bones. And I was hiking, and I heard ominous sound. And I looked to my left, and there was a huge cloud of bees coming my way. And I didn't know at the time that they're looking for a home. They don't care about me. They literally flew through me. And it was very scary. And then fast forward, when I was making the film, I remember being at Runyon, and I got up, and at that moment, again, there was a swarm of bees, and this time I jumped up, and there were people ducking, and I was like, yay! And
I can just picture this.
And so I've been
the
encountered.
Runyon,
yeah, of course you'd be scared. There's bees.
Right.
And so after my accident, I wanted to do something, and I basically made a testament to the universe saying I want to be in service and do something that's bigger than me. And I was looking for a project. George and I, George Langworthy, co-director of Vanishing of the Bees, we became friends, and we were looking for a project. It was 2007, and he came to me. A friend had told him colony collapse, and it's going to be huge. And he said, I think this is going to be a great doc. And the gravity, I say, of the situation really didn't hit me.
Right.
And I spent a half an hour looking at the bees and really resonated with the fact that they're a sister society, and that the bees with CCD, they abandon the brood and the queen.
So the bees came to you in two different instances, and you were thinking, this might be a sign. So you started doing some research.
Yeah, I did some research. The encounter with the bees was about 2 years prior. Okay. And then when I started doing the research, then a few days later, I started having more bee visitations.
Wow.
And they haven't stopped.
And they're still coming. Later at some point, you're going to have to tell me how to stop being fearful of bees, because I find them beautiful and glorious, but I am a bit scared. When we come back, we're going to check out the trailer for the documentary film Vanishing of the Bees, and we're going to discuss these issues in greater depth. Stay tuned.